When thinking of gift giving, what better way to show your love than handmade personal gifts? And because you're working with resin, it can be easy on your pocketbook. I'm Elaine. I'm a jewelry designer here at Fire Mountain Gems and Beads, and today I'm going to show you a couple of gifts that you can make with resin.
Get our email newsletter for beading news, sale announcements, new product announcements, and more. Link is in the description below.
The first one of my gifts that I've made out of resin is this little ring dish, and I made this in honor of my 20th wedding anniversary coming up next month. And yes, that's me with black hair before I let my gray grow out. The first step in making this is actually pouring the resin into the mold. I'm going to show you how to do the resin, and we're going to put some in the cup right here. I'm going to put equal parts of parts 1 and 2, and I'm going to use the lines on this cup to determine how much resin I need. And there I have part 1, and now I'm going to put part 2 in. And we want equal parts of 1 and 2 to make this chemical reaction work. If you don't use equal parts of 1 and 2, your resin is not going to set. So there we go. We have equal parts of 1 and 2. And I'm going to start slowly mixing my resin. So once you mix the parts 1 and 2 thoroughly, we're going to start adding the color to the mix. I'm going to start tinting it now with resin dye, and I have chosen a light blue, so I'm going to do a combination of blue, green, and white, and a little bit of mica powder to give it that sparkle. And I'm just going to add a few drops at a time because I'm just going for that light blue look. And I'm going to add some green. And now I'm going to add just a touch of white. And that gives it an opaque look instead of a translucent look. And then I'm going to stir again. And just stir this for a few minutes. And then I'm going to add a little bit of mica powder once this is all blended in. And this is just a translucent white color just to give it a little shimmer. And you don't need much at all. A little goes a long way. And then continue to stir that again. And that's the color that I like, but you can customize it in any color you want to do your resin in. We have an array of colors of dyes. First, you're going to want to let that set just a little bit so the air bubbles could come to the surface. Here we have our dish mold. It's actually in 2 parts. And you're going to make sure that that's put together and it's snug. And then you're going to put it face down with the hole facing up. And this is where we're going to pour the resin. You're going to want to do this a little at a time because you want the resin to flow all the way to the bottom of the mold. So you see it's already full to the top, but we're going to just do a little tap to make sure that resin goes down. And then you can pour a little at a time again. You don't want to pour it all at once or it's going to overflow all over the mold. So we're just doing a little at a time. You're going to start seeing the resin rise and fill all the mold, but you want to just do it a little at a time and let that resin go down to the bottom before you pour again. And there we go, fill it to the top again. Tap, 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 let it rest a little bit. You can kind of push the edges a little bit, but don't push too hard because we don't want that mold to pop open. Again, fill to the top. Tap, tap, tap. Let the resin go to the bottom of the mold. And as you can see, It is now completely full. I think if you pour just a little bit more in, it'll be done. And then we're going to let this fully cure for 24 to 48 hours, and we're going to come and pop that out. And here it is. I'm going to pop it out of the mold. But the next step I need to do is actually raise the resin just a bit so the picture stays on top and does not sink to the bottom. And I'm only going to put just a little bit of resin into the dish. We don't want a whole lot. I just want enough to go to the edges. And that's going to create a resin base, a hard resin base for me, so the picture will not sink. It will actually stay to the top. All right, and then we're just going to let that cure for 24 to 48 hours. The next thing I did was sealed my picture with some Mod Podge and a paintbrush. I did both sides, front and back, and I did that about 3 times and let that dry in between. Once completely dried, I mix my resin and I'm going to apply a small amount to the inside of the dish to secure the picture. And then I pour a small amount of resin and let that cure for 24 to 48 hours. You can eliminate bubbles with a heat source by lightly going over the surface. After it's fully cured, I applied rhinestones around the rim using DevCon 5-minute epoxy. Then I let it cure and dry completely, and then there you go. You have a beautiful personalized ring dish. For my second resin gift, I have this beautiful, cute, personalized keepsake pendant with a little baby's foot. I'm going to show you how we did that. The first step I did was made a little baby's foot out of polymer clay, and I used just a dusting of gold mica powder for the finish. Then we're going to get the pendant ready using one of my favorite tools, resin tape, which is sticky on one side, and it's great for open face pendants or components so the resin doesn't leak out. As you can see, I got my pendant already on my tape, and I'm going to tint this resin. I'm going to just use a little bit of black dye, and a little goes a long way, so I only need a couple drops. And this is just going to give a neutral background. And I'm going to stir that and make sure it's well stirred and well blended. All right, once it's mixed, I'm going to slowly pour the resin into our mold. Just enough, and this tape is great because the resin does not leak out. And I just want just a small base, just like that. And now we're going to let this sit for 24 to 48 hours, and then we'll come back to the next step. And here we have one that's fully cured. And I'm going to show you how easy this tape comes off. And it's fully cured and ready to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is take a little bit of glue, put it on the bottom of my little baby foot, and I'm going to place that into the pendant just so it doesn't move around when I'm ready to pour my resin. Carefully fill the pendant with resin using a silicone stir stick. Fill just to the top and then use a torch to eliminate any air bubbles on the surface. Let this cure a full 24 to 48 hours before removing the tape. And while your resin is curing, now's a good time to like, share, and subscribe, and sign up for our newsletter. There you go, add a chain, and now you have your own personal keepsake resin pendant. The creativity in making resin gifts are endless. Here are some examples of some resin gifts I've made. I hope I've gotten you excited to make your own resin gifts using molds and giving you other resin ideas for your gifts. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you next time.